November 27, 1989, Avianca Airlines Flight 203, a Colombian domestic passenger flight, is destroyed by a bomb. All 101 passengers on board are killed, along with 6 crew members and 3 people on the ground. The bomb was intended for Colombian presidential candidate Cesar Gaviria Trujillo, who was not on the flight and changed his reservation at the last minute. The bombing was the handiwork of Pablo Escobar, the leader of the Medellin drug cartel. Escobar was beloved by the poor of Colombia, but many said he had finally gone too far. But I say, sometimes a man's got to do what a man's got to do.
Excellent choice, Mike.
Thank you. I Googled top Colombian songs, and this came up, and I played it for a little bit, and it's pretty good. You know?
And here we are.
Yeah. Yeah. Great guest today. We're talking to Will Menaker from Chapo Trap House.
Hello. Great to be sitting down with the sit down.
We wanted you here because you're kind of like an expert on this kind of thing, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Running a multi-billion-dollar drug empire. You know, it's sort of like a slightly scaled back version of the Medellin operation we're doing out of the Trap House.
Yeah. There's no record of Will between 2003 and 2007.
Ooh.
Because he was El Gato.
Well, we record the show, as we're recording the show right here, right now, in a prison that I've built for myself, courtesy of the Twitter police.
That was a great prison. Did you hear anything about Pablo Escobar's prison?
Yeah.
It had 3 walls, volleyball or soccer court. He was able to murder people in it.
He murdered 2 of his former associates inside of it.
Yeah.
But then you got to but then there was a pool and a soccer field and TV, and they had booze and women and things like that. But he still couldn't leave.
Yeah.
So after a while, it's just you and a bunch of smelly men, and you're going stir crazy.
Right.
It's like a vacation that never ends, and
Well,
you can't leave the Club Med.
Yeah. The guy's got to be comfortable, though, I guess. It is funny, people's perception of Escobar and the cartel is so different. You know, there's so many. They killed a lot of people, but they also did a lot of good. You know.
Yeah, that can be said. That can be said of all governments, and who are we to judge? Really?
Right. Exactly. Yeah, we did a good interview with Louisa last week, and she was like, her dad worked for Escobar, and she was like, well, yeah, they killed a lot of people, but a lot of those officials were corrupt anyway.
Yeah.
So.
They're bags.
Reformer with results.
Yeah. We did get to watch a pretty cool documentary, though. It was, there's a documentary from Russia Today, but today we're talking about Jhon, how do you pronounce this? Jhon Jairo. Jhon Souvlaki.
He's not Greek.
What's that?
He's not Greek.
Do you know how to pronounce this?
I think it's Johan, but maybe I'm incorrect. It's definitely not John, for sure. But Popeye.
Anyway, yeah, he was a hitman for Escobar's organization who confessed to killing over 250 people.
Yeah, and he had an underbite, so that's how he got his nickname, right?
Yeah. You ever kill anyone?
Not yet. Not yet.
Do you think you could if you had to?
I don't think so. And living in America with my parents, no way, Jose.
Yeah.
But, if I grew up in Colombia, with that kind of economics, probably.
Yeah.
Probably.
Right. It also
I'd just like to say, for the record, I would have no problem taking someone out. Just laser focus, just as easy as batting an eye.
Yeah. 2 in the head.
Yeah.
And
as I learned from Popeye.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this guy, he's 55 years old now. He was one of Escobar's most feared assassins, and now he's a YouTuber. He's a YouTuber with 100,000 subscribers.
No, we just checked his channel. It's he has 500,000.
Yeah, he's got over 1 million. Yeah, 500,000. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we were saying before, he's killing Brandon Wardell.
Literally.
Yeah. What up? This is Brandon. I'm here with my boy Popeye. Brandon will have him on his show or something.
Well, I mean, he's a content creator,
Yeah.
I feel sort of simpatico with him,
Sympathetic.
That's the funny part of this stuff. It's can any of these guys stay out of the spotlight? It doesn't seem like they can. Whenever you look at people who survive and get out of it, they all become movie consultants or they write books or whatever.
Yeah.
It just doesn't seem like I don't know. Do any of these guys keep a low profile? I don't think so.
Not this guy.
I mean, what's the point? why be a criminal if you're gonna, just
Right.
like become like, some other anonymous asshole.
Yeah, and he's not like, it's not like he's trying to stay alive in jail either. Like this is like fun jail. So he like talks about his first book. He's like, this is the first book I wrote in jail.
Oh, I wonder what his prison sentence was like though.
Oh, you mean
because he didn't have the same facility that Escobar had?
No, he went to real jail for like 23 years.
For some reason, I thought, okay.
He was in the cathedral prison with Escobar for like a year or so.
Right.
But I think after that, probably after Escobar was killed by the government, I think then he had to deal with.
See what happens when the fucking guest knows more than you? Now you look like a retard.
Makes for good conflict.
God damn it.
That's for sure.
Yeah. No, there was a part where he's like, they tried to stab me. They would put feces on the knife before they.
Yeah.
So,
okay, that doesn't sound like fun jail.
Yeah.
What a downgrade.
Imagine you get stabbed and that's not even like the worst thing that happens to you. Because now there's feces inside of you.
Dying of the infection. That's bad news.
Yeah.
But okay, so he did 23 years in jail, but like the purpose of this documentary is that like his sentence is over and now he's just like I said, he's out in the streets, he's a celeb, he's taking flicks with everyone, people love him.
Yeah.
But at the same time, he like is just like, I've killed probably 250 people with my own hand, ordered 1,000 more over that, and it's just sort of like the scales of justice, I don't know, it doesn't seem like well balanced in this case,
No, it doesn't.
For a guy like that to do like 23 years, then he's out and like basically a charming, affable old codger, like he's like,
yeah, he looks like your friend's dad or something. Yeah. He's got a son in New York, he said. I mean, but do you think that like some of our prison sentences over here may be a little too long to
Absolutely.
I mean, when people get like
in almost
multiple
every
life sentences?
Yeah, in almost every case, like the insane like 9 or 10 life sentences. However, like this guy really like tests the limits of your belief in like prison reform or like a more compassionate criminal justice system.
For sure.
Because he could has no remorse whatsoever, and is happily reliving and recounting the details of all of these sadistic murders and tortures that he did to anyone who will listen, and people love him for it.
Right.
He's got a Netflix show in addition to his YouTube channel.
Yeah. A podcast probably eventually.
Yeah, sooner or later that'll be the final insult to the human rights is him starting a podcast.
He's got a Patreon.
Yeah, Patreon, exactly.
Yeah.
The thing that bothers me the most about like him being so brash is when he goes to pose with people, like he's like holding like a finger gun to their chest, or like he's like got his throat to their his finger to their throat, and it's just like this dude killed all these people, and all these people are just smiling like they're at some fun attraction at Disney World or something. It's just,
he does kind of turn you into like a dad, like a Fox News dad a little bit.
The documentary, there was like an RT documentary about this guy. Yeah. It reminded me a lot, and like his personality and his whole self-presentation, it really reminded me a lot. Have you guys seen this movie? There's a documentary that came out a couple years ago called The Act of Killing.
No, I heard about it though.
Okay, it's very much like that because it's like a different country. It's about Indonesia, but like rather than like being part of a criminal organization, it's about this guy who was a member of a paramilitary organization that was officially recognized by the government and helped them carry out a genocide in that country in the 70s that killed probably 2 million people. But like the thing is, the people who perpetrated that genocide, it worked. They're still in power, and these guys are basically pseudo celebrity figures. They go on TV, and he's this like, seemingly lovable old guy who will then, as easy as me recounting what I had for lunch or what I did on New Year's Eve, will tell you that he personally garroted like 700 people to death.
Yeah.
And the conceit of the movie is that this documentary is just sort of takes him at his word and pretends to play along with it, and then tells him that like, we're going to make a movie about your life and like all the great things that you did. And then he like reenacts all of these grisly executions and murders like he's the hero of his own story.
Right.
And it's all very perverse and fucked up. And like,
how old is this guy?
He's like in his 70s now. Okay. Like he's like an old guy, but he's in great health. He's got grandkids. He's loving life. He's happy. Which is sick. Like it's a very disturbing thought.
That's what I want to know is why are they all so charming? I don't get it.
I don't know.
That's a trait of psychopaths, though, for them to kind of be generally numb to happiness and sadness.
Yeah.
But they're just charming and they could throw you away, just like toilet paper.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's a scene in this documentary where he confronts some of like his victims or people. And there's a scene where there's this woman who had her arm blown off by a grenade.
Yeah.
And I was like, when this was going on the documentary, I'm like, oh, well, this is good. They're showing like, it's not just about him being like a cool guy. They're showing that like they're, very real victims to him.
Right.
And then like he sits down with this woman and he like totally charms her. And she seems like completely taken with him. And he's like, oh, well, you've served your time. I understand. You've helped giving me closure for this. And like, he apologizes to her and everything. He's like, oh, I'll testify for your case to give you official recognition as a victim of the terrorism that I perpetrated. Like, it's very odd, but she seems very like charmed and taken by him.
Do you think any of that was genuine from him? Do you think he kind of like feels bad that she lost her hand, or do you think that it was just an act? Or, I mean,
it's hard to say. I think like the easy thing would be like it is just an act for him, but I think he's playing along with it in that like he believes that I'm a changed guy now or something like that.
Yeah.
So like that he likes being sort of the good guy now, or be like, hey, I'm proof that anyone can change. Like, yeah, I'm a tough guy. I did bad things back in the day, but like now I'm just. I'm an everyman.
Yeah,
people love me.
Check out my channel. Rate, subscribe.
Like and subscribe.
Yeah, sure.
But it seemed like he did kind of frame it like, well, this is what we had to do, and I'm sorry that happened to you.
Well, they framed it as a war, and like in as far as the Medellin Cartel and a lot of the Colombian cartels, they did go to war with the Colombian government over extradition. They viewed it as a war, but like, I don't think that it's a pretty shoddy moral absolution for their like wholesale slaughter of like men, women, and children.
Yeah, that's true. It's so funny because when you watch like mob movies and stuff, it's always like, oh no, the feds, and like someone gets dragged out in a tracksuit or whatever because the feds are there with their jackets that say FBI. But it didn't seem like the Medellin Cartel like cared. Like they were like, they went to war with the state, and no one's ever done that.
As he said, before. like Popeye says, like, killing judges was like nothing.
Yeah.
Like it was just like matter of business. Like anyone who would even hear a case against any of Escobar's guys was just like a dead man.
Yeah. Oof. Yeah. That's what we do like to do on this show. We do like to poke fun at like the sort of hero worship of these guys. Because I think I'm probably guilty of it a little bit.
Yeah, everyone is.
I think everybody like, you're walking down the street late at night, you're like, yeah, I'm in the mafia. Or you walk into a bar and you're like, maybe I'm the only one who does that. I pretend I'm there to like shake it down. No?
Well, I pretend I'm like every time I'm walking anywhere, I pretend it's like the tracking shot from Goodfellas, where I'm like walking in some place.
Let's see. So Popeye was born in the municipality of Yaramul. He enrolled in the Colombian Navy, where he got the nickname Popeye because of his physical resemblance to the fictional cartoon character, features which would be later removed through plastic surgery. That's kind of funny, right? Going to a doctor, being like, Make me look not like Popeye.
It's like, what do you want? And like, you take me from this Popeye to this, and it's like a picture of George Jetson or something.
Yeah, it was funny that one part in the documentary where he's like, when I met Pablo Escobar, all I wanted to do was be near him and kill for him.
Yeah, I just want to join that crew.
Yeah.
He really loves Pablo.
Yeah,
that does come across as very sincere. He loves El Patron, and admires him greatly. To this.
Yeah, our friend Louisa, Pablo was her godfather.
Wow.
Yeah. So,
are you going to get to this later, where he eventually has to kill his first hero from the Colombian cartel? And like, there's two brothers, and he ended up being contracted out by Pablo to kill those two guys who he originally like idolized as a kid. And it was just weird that
was later on, right?
Yeah, much later on. Yeah. But did you see that at all?
Yeah, I saw there was mention of that. It was sort of the guy who was the big drug kingpin in Medellin, in that part of Colombia before Pablo Escobar, and he was the one that like all the kids knew and was like, "Oh, I want to be like that guy."
Yeah,
and then he did want to be like that guy, and then he got with Pablo and ended up killing this dude.
Yeah, I love that. I love when it's like it's a made-for-TV movie. It just came back around in such an obvious way, like kill your hero because this is the job that you want.
It's like if there was like a sports figure you idolized as a kid that like you got to join the team that they played for, but you had to kill them first.
Yeah, right. For you, it's like Keith Van Horn or somebody.
Like I'm taking over there.
Some lanky white guy. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know who it'd be for me. Maybe like I don't know. But anyway, I was thinking though, maybe like, do you think the appeal with these guys is like, do you think maybe there's a part of us that knows that we're alone in life and we die alone and no one really helps us? So you see a guy like this and you're like, well, that's a guy who can always like take care of himself. I don't know.
I think the appeal is like in this idea that like of just sort of taking the shortcut to like power and success, and like everyone wants to like exert their will on other people and like not give a shit what anyone thinks and rebel against society. And there's always like the figure of the outlaw is very seductive in that, even though like to do that means either not having or just removing like a normal human conscience that like would be repelled by murdering someone, for instance.
Right. Popeye, he said, I'm a professional killer. I killed for money. I also killed out of love and respect for Pablo Escobar. He also said, he was like, you have to distinguish in the other one. I don't know if you saw it. He was like, you have to distinguish who just kills for business and who does it because they love it. He's like, you meet somebody who kills prostitutes or cross-dressers or gays, that's no good. And he was like, a guy who builds houses doesn't need to stack bricks when he's not at work.
That's so
And that's like what he compares.
to him. It's so good.
Yeah.
He's a psychopath. He's talking about himself, but he can't recognize it in himself.
Right. But I don't think it was, he probably, I don't know. Do you think he enjoyed it or do you think maybe not?
He had to. I mean, for him to be recounting it like this and for him to be enjoying his TV show to some degree, he misses it, you know? Maybe he doesn't miss the same level of uncertainty when it comes to danger and the wars that happen. But for him to just go out and just make believe, I feel like that's helping him get whatever was in him out through just this TV show. You know, for him to be able to fire squibs at a guy point blank and be like, oh, I just murdered him. And now the CGI team is going to come in and murder him and I get to watch that. You know what I mean? I feel like that's cathartic to him somehow.
Well, I mean, I think it's also kind of like nauseating to think of like, you know, morally like that he's free and gets to continue to take some kind of pleasure in sort of reenacting and being praised for like all of these murders that he committed.
Right. But it is entertaining because like to see behind the curtain to that degree where, you know, it's this person who was firsthand, you know, knowledge and they could recount actual stories, which is like both horrifying and interesting.
Yeah, I mean, there's like I said, like it goes back to this like the sort of glory of evil that's like inherent in things like the outlaw and like organized crime. Like there's like there is a seductive nature to it. There is a glory to the evil, basically.
Yeah. I felt. Oh, go ahead.
You go ahead.
I was gonna say like I felt so gross when the journalist. The woman, she comes in, she's like, well, we got a chance to ask him specifically how he would go and kill these people. So he like explains these like interesting and terrible torture methods. And then he starts talking about how he would kill her. 2 shots to the head. And then he points his weapon at her face after cocking it. It's on safety, I guess, but like he's like, this is where you want to kill him, not down here. That means you're a coward. Up here, and he's like pointing it at her body and like all these different parts of her body, and like all of her questions immediately stopped.
Yeah, she looked like she wanted to throw up. Like, it was terrifying. Like to have someone like that just that easily point a gun at you.
Yeah. And the cameraman, he's just like, I'm going to follow the action. Here we go. And zoom in, zoom out. I got to get it was good footage, but terrifying.
Do you guys think that we're a little too sympathetic to like poverty like this? Like sometimes we might look at it and be like, oh, well, he was really poor. But there are plenty of people in Colombia who are poor, right? That don't do that.
Well, obviously,
like,
vast majority.
No, but do you think we make excuses maybe too easily, or
like what?
Sometimes,
they're like, well,
the conditions were ripe for terrorism.
Well, okay, like I mean, like in one of the like in books about like Colombia and about like the drug wars, like they I think they do like the fact like why is Colombia such a violent country, and like the fact is they did have this like brutal civil war that was fought mostly against civilians, against each other in the 1950s between basically like the right and left of their country that is basically almost still ongoing to this day. They just signed a peace treaty with FARC after like almost 60 years or something like that.
Okay.
But I mean, like it was a civil war that was marked by like, brutal, just like really extravagant and symbolic acts of violence on people's bodies and civilians. And like, I don't know. I mean, I think maybe like there's an answer like that kind of violence like warps a culture like in a certain way. I mean, I don't know. But as to the example, like they grew up poor and that's why he's ended up killing 250 people. Yeah, I think that is a bullshit rationalization.
Yeah. It's just very interesting. Like, last week, the show we did with Louisa, it's totally different. And then hearing Will talk about this stuff, you know what I mean?
Well, Popeye...
It was just, it was hard to get her to admit that those murders weren't very good.
And you could stick that quote in her mouth.
Yeah. But I don't know.
For them to treat you like a child and like to teach you skills like playing cards and very loving traits, it's like it's gotta fuck with you.
Yeah. She said that he taught her how to play cards and shit like that.
Pablo.
Yeah.
Popeye.
Popeye. Oh,
Yeah,
okay. This guy.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure, like, I mean, as you see in this movie, like, he is very charming and, like, in the right circumstances, like, very affable and nice and, like, seemingly like a friendly person. But, like, again, like, I don't know how you just, like, not in the back of your mind, you'd be like,
yeah,
this guy would murder you just, like, at the drop of a hat.
For $50,000.
If he thought, yeah, exactly. Just, like, a calculated act, like, just, like, a switch would turn like that. And, yeah. Like that part of him is removed that like other people seemingly have, but it doesn't mean that like these other traits aren't also, manifest as well, like friendliness and kindness to children or animals and shit like that.
Right. Yeah, they come out in some way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean that bombing was like, I think that was pretty much unheard of, that someone would just blow up an airplane to get to one guy who wasn't even on the flight.
Well, yeah, like in the heyday of like terrorism, like both like left wing and like the sort of like secular Arab terrorist groups in the 70s. That was like the heyday of hijacking planes. Mm-hmm. And it was like, because this was crazy. Like back in the day, you could just like walk into an airport and basically like walk out on a tarmac on the plane.
Yeah.
And it was always like you would hijack a plane and get it to land elsewhere, like take people hostage. Like the whole idea of like blowing up entire planes full of people or using them as bombs is like, yeah, that was a new thing. And like, yeah, exactly. Taking a bomb on a fucking whole airplane and just blowing the entire thing up was, yeah, I think that was like a really shocking and novel development.
I'm trying to get this bit to work on stage where I talk about like if you had a time machine, you tried to stop 9/11, like what would you do? You'd have to like call the airport, but I don't think they would believe you. They'd just be like, "Sir, that is not my job."
Yeah. I'd call Mark Wahlberg and be like, Mark,
get on that plane.
You're wanted.
You're like, Mark, I bought you a ticket. All right, I'll be there.
Yeah, TSA isn't going to stop it.
Yeah. You think you could stop 9/11?
What if you like just called in a bomb threat to like each of those three airlines?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, that would probably work.
You would maybe delay it or you shut it down for like, like fuck up the schedule. Maybe they'd try again. I don't know.
See, we need smarter guests on this show.
100%.
We need more Will Menakers and less...
Yeah, it would probably be a different date we'd be all remembering. If we called in a bomb threat on 9/11, it would just be never forget 9/12.
Yeah.
Or whatever day they got tickets.
My nephew could enjoy his birthday.
He was born on 9/11?
No, but they did an article one time on like kids who were like born on 9/11. Yeah. Let's see.
I don't. I thought it was like all the different torture methods that this guy knows. Did you hear him talk about it a little bit? He's talking about quartering people. I feel like that would probably be one of the worst ones. Torture, death, sentences. But like the Colombian necktie, what is that?
It's when you slit someone's throat and then pull their tongue out through the hole that you make in their throat.
Fuck that. Yeah. That's so gross.
Yeah. And this was a trademark of the Colombian Civil War, like done against civilians that like, as part of this brutal like back and forth, like, right wing just be like, hey, don't go socialist or whatever. This is what happens to Reds or whatever. Like just bodies out in the street or whatever.
Wow. So what about that? So what about that scene in the documentary where the guy confronts him? The guy lost his father in that bombing,
in the plane bombing. Yeah.
And there was something about like the guy protested him getting out of prison, and he like almost got offended by that. He was like, you protested me getting out of prison. He calls him a bad man with an evil heart.
He also says like, he's like, I respect you. You don't respect me. You're not even being polite to me.
Yeah.
And it's just like, there's this weird thing where it's just like, he's like, hey, I did my time or whatever. It's like, well, everything's even now. And it's like, well, not really. Again, like you're out having fun.
My dad's dead
and shit. And like the thousands of people whose lives he's ruined or just deleted or like just nothing now. Like, some of the families they talked to were like, yeah, it's grotesque also that he has like a TV show about his life or whatever. And people love him because it's this weird like Hollywood celebrity thing. Like Pablo Escobar made Medellin famous and Colombia famous and on the world stage in a way.
Right.
That like that's what they're famous for. And so like these people are like celebrities.
Right.
Yeah. And it was tough to watch that. That scene in particular, because all things considered, that guy standing up to Popeye felt kind of brave.
Yeah.
Because what this man is capable of.
Let me ask you this. Louisa made it sound like there are, like a lot of these guys do have some kind of like, some sort of ideas to the left about taking care of the people of the country. Do you see any sort of... I don't know. She was like, I'm a registered socialist and everything like that. So,
well, she made some points when she was talking about like the things that they have to do to get funding from the government, which was like, spray the cocaine crops with salt, but like also it's killing a lot of other things like other crops in like their main export, which is like, what was it? Coffee and bananas.
Yeah.
So she was saying like a lot of the things that they had to do to cooperate were pretty bad,
Yeah.
So I mean, I guess I understand being on one side and being like, let us take care of our own people. Why are we trying to extradite people to this country who you're getting all this weird aid from, and they have an assassination program, and you know what I mean? I understand that point of it, but
right,
so many gray areas, so much collateral damage, especially with those bombs.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, obviously, like, from the American perspective, like it's hard to be like, oh, like, how dare the Colombian people be looking up to these drug dealers and drug lords or whatever when like like I said, all the shit we've done with drugs and assassination and terrorism in Central and South America. But like, yeah, the Medellin Cartel, like, yeah, Pablo is like still sort of this looked at as sort of a Robin Hood figure because he basically was extracting billions of dollars of wealth out of the United States by people fucking shoving drugs up their nose.
Right.
And he did spend a lot of that to build like, soccer fields and hospitals and housing in Medellin that maybe the government wouldn't do. But again, I think it goes back to this idea of like, I mean, at the end of the day, like I don't think he's that much better than like any other just giant, brutally exploitative capitalist industry. That's just like it has no regard for human life at all, despite the fact that he made a soccer field or two. Like,
right. Do you think there's anybody in America who was like, we have to stop the Medellin Cartel? Do you think there's probably some big money over here?
What do you mean?
Like, do you think there was anybody who had a problem with all the money that was being dumped into the cartel?
Reagan?
Like
sure.
Any big...
And like, not only that, just how much raw U.S. currency was being held by the Medellin Cartel. I mean, yeah, that was the whole war on drugs. That was the whole like extradition issue.
Right.
Like, yeah, they tried as hard as possible to take him out and eventually did.
Right. Yeah, Escobar said, better be in a grave in Colombia than a jail cell in the United States.
Hell yeah.
We're
not wrong.
Yeah. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
Do you want to do read one of your patented ads?
I don't have one prepared. I do these fake ads for like Blue Apron.
Mack Weldon underwear.
Yeah. You don't know how to buy stuff at the store. So go to Mack Weldon for underwear. It'll the smell of your ass won't absorb into it. And we're back. Thanks for being here, folks. Popeye said a professional killer keeps his gun fully assembled with the safety on. Professional killers use revolvers. You shoot between the eyebrows and the hairline. An amateur shoots lower. It shows fear. He might shoot in the stomach. You could survive, but there's no chance if you shoot him where he's saying to go. So I'm actually reading the new Jim Crow right now. And like, it just seems like one of the themes of that book is like there's so much prison for people in the country. Mm-hmm. Like there's a lot of prison, and it's for-profit prison, and people get multiple life sentences. But I don't know. Should this guy be out on the streets? Oh. It's weird that it is interesting that all he did was 23 years.
Right. Yeah. So we were talking a little bit about it earlier, but like, the maximum sentence he received, which was 30 years. And then for him to get probation.
Oh, he did?
Well, I mean, if he got the maximum sentence of 30 years and he only served 23 years, it means he got out early.
Yeah.
It says he served 3/5 of his sentence. So he got out at age 52, released August 26, 2014.
Mm-hmm. Is there a thing on the left where people want to abolish prison?
It's interesting. Like I've tried to engage this topic rather unsuccessfully. People are sort of cagey about it, and I think it's interesting to me because, like, obviously, there's, as you said, there's way too much fucking prison in America. Like, the police are super fucked up. Like, everything about our criminal justice system is like bad, and like, there's an argument to be made that like the overwhelming weight of like what it does to people in our society is so evil and so rotten and so destabilizing of it as so much else that like if it would like letting every criminal out of jail would do less harm than it's currently doing, just wrenching our social fabric and just keeping people in this like cycle of like prison and incarceration and state surveillance and things like that, right. Which I'm sympathetic to. But like, the question is like, are you talking about prison abolition, or are you talking about like prison reform, where like jail is more like you just like they make you go back to high school, like Norway, basically?
Oh, is that what they do?
I don't know. It's just like a more humane like alternative. But like the question is like, what do you do with someone like Popeye?
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Like, and then like even if you like forget the idea of like, oh, like prison should not be just purely about punishment. Like, you know, people need help, or like maybe they can better their lives in some way. Who the fuck knows? But like at this point, this guy has killed 250 people. That's not one murder.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Which is like a terrible act that can never be taken back. But at the same time, like I'm not willing to say like you're completely irredeemable as a person. After 250, it's sort of like that's just like that's like you're a war. That's like a war crime, basically.
Yeah. Right.
And it's just like
I
sort of
feel
like,
and there's 10 people there, we're happy. You know. So think of like 20. Think of 25 shows. Think of 25 good shows. Those are all people that could have been laughing at your new peanut butter joke.
Oh, and they're gonna bring their families.
Yeah.
and it's just like I mean, he got out of jail at 55. I mean, that's like the best years of your life, right? That's retirement, you know, like, and to be rewarded as such, it seems very perverse. Like they like, and then like, and like I think like
it's almost cruel to release somebody at that age, because it's like, what are they gonna do?
It's really someone who's very old. Yeah.
It's like I'm rewatching Sopranos now, and when Feach gets out, I thought I liked Feach as a character. But after rewatching it, I think this guy's
he's
like
an asshole.
He's an asshole. Yeah, he's like an egomaniac. But then Tony's like, well, how would you feel if your time passed you by?
Right.
So,
no. So I mean, like, I think the people who are consider themselves prison abolitionists would be like, well, like, why would you why is the onus on us to make our case based on like the worst possible example, like Ted Bundy or a fucking mafia hitman who's killed like hundreds of people with no remorse? Like, you know, the onus is on like the vast majority of people in prison for like, you know, things that are like non-violent, or even if it was an act of violence, they're in jail for way too fucking long. And jail itself is so violent and inhumane and cruel that like they could like. You can't like it's worse than any like criminal act committed by whatever person who was in there in the first place. So I don't know. Like I can't quite imagine. Maybe it's a failure of my own imagination. I can't quite imagine even a perfect society in which there's not some space for people that like have transgressed to be sort of removed from society and having their freedom taken away. Obviously, our current prison system is, you know, so nightmarish that, again, I don't know what to say, but like to me, it seems perverse that he's only did 20 years in jail.
Yeah,
Popeye,
100%.
Yeah,
well, like we have laws in the United States that prevent a lot of these mobsters from using their story for you know, benefit. Like they can't make money selling their story to like Hollywood, you know, because the deals they struck with the state, you know.
right.
I think that's wrong. That's anti-First Amendment. You know,
Yeah.
I think you should, you know, if someone wants to, I think you should be allowed to talk about their life on a podcast without paying them any money. But, you know, if Hollywood comes to calling, I think they should have to pony up.
Right.
Yeah, pay a tax. Anybody's worth it if they can pay the government money.
Yeah. Well, there's an interesting story in this about the judge where this judge was threatened a bunch of times, and then he didn't back down. He was eventually murdered in front of his wife, who was pregnant at the time, and she had the baby and everything. But I guess my question is, how would you respond to a threat like that? Because they're having this whole debate about, like, is it worth it? Do you think that what he, you know, should he have stood up and stuck to his guns, or was it foolish that he didn't?
Yeah, that was a very touching moment in the movie, because his daughter, the daughter who was like in utero when this murder happened, and then was born 2 months premature because like the mother was shot along with her husband sitting in a car.
Mm-hmm. She's got like one giant hand or something.
They're talking, you know, they're talking about what a great man their father was and how he wasn't intimidated and believed.
She's got
in,
a tail.
All right. And the daughter says, like, you know, I wish he wouldn't have done that. I would rather have had a father than had this great man that other people tell me about. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I mean, I would have absolutely knuckled under. I mean, no fucking way. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No fucking way. Like, yeah. Not worth fucking dying over.
Yeah. There's always like, I mean, not that I think it's going to happen, but doing this show, there's kind of the fear in the back of my mind that someone's going to hear it and be like, that's my fucking uncle you're talking about. You know?
Well, shit, like my show, I think Chapo's actually in Brooklyn prison right now, or he's being held in trial. I don't know.
Yeah.
I've always, if something deep in the back of my mind would be like, well, what if he knows about the show?
Yeah.
And we're using his name in some way.
You got to pay him like 20%.
Pay him or
you
just
give him Amber.
Yeah, exactly. You know, as they're revving up the chainsaw to cut my head off, I'm like, no, it's irony. You don't get.
Yeah, where did you get that name from?
Honestly, it was like just completely off the top of my head. Like I was listening to a lot of like mixtapes, and I was just like thinking about dumb shit along those lines, and it was just a joke at the end of our first show that stuck. But like I guess like I thought of it because I wanted it to sound completely different than like I wanted to have like the stupidest name imaginable that sounded different than like any other show where people talked about politics, which all have like the dumbest names, like, you know, like the most boring garbage, like
it's just a
the Gab Fest, you know, yeah, like Politichat, you know,
left
so like,
to center,
yeah, exactly, so I just wanted something that was like completely just bizarre and like out of left field.
Nice. Let me ask you this: let's say you get an anonymous tip. Somebody says, "Will, there's a rat in your crew." What do you do?
Someone's leaking the group DMs. Someone's screenshotting that shit.
Someone's sending it to Sarah Lerner.
Verified tip.
Man, you know, like I think I'd sort of be like the scene in The Untouchables, you know, enthusiasms, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'd probably like
because I divide all my friends like that. I'm like, who would rat and who would probably, you know.
I would just try to.
He's got a vision.
I would, you know, I'd play it cool, you know, business as usual, but like little by little, just sort of like, just try to catch people out individually. Like no big confrontation. Like when do you snitch? I'd be like, just little morality tests. Be like, hey, if if you guys, let's say you found a $20 bill on the street, would you look around before you put it in your pocket, or what? You know, just little character tests, and I would make my decision based on that.
Is there anybody that your mind goes to, and you're like, oh, it's probably that one?
No, yo, my whole crew is tight. They're all shooters. They're all loyal soldiers.
Good. That's a message to you all. run with a tight crew. Do you listen to Chapo?
Do you think I would rat? And to answer your question,
I think when I met you, you probably would. You probably go home to your girlfriend and be like, "What should I do?" And she'd be like, "You got to go to the cops." But after hanging out with a G like me for for the past few months, yeah,
of course,
yeah.
I was gonna say you guys are talking about if you were betrayed. Popeye actually had to kill his wife. We didn't even cover that.
What?
Yeah, he killed his
I
wife.
missed that.
Now, because I only saw it on Wikipedia, and you would think they would mention it in the 2 documentaries that we watched. But let me find.
Yeah, but to my understanding of what happened, Pablo Escobar, they found out that his wife was an informant, and Pablo said to him, "It's like it's either you or her, and you don't need to think another second about this." And like that helped me get an even more informed opinion on this guy. I was like, maybe he's just, just a career or whatever. But, to find out he killed his wife, it's pretty insane.
Yeah, well,
I mean, fellas, wouldn't we all? You know what I'm saying?
I thought even if Pablo Escobar didn't ask me.
It's like, he's got a kid in New York. Is that his birth mother? That's what I would be interested in.
Yeah, that's weird. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know about that.
Yeah.
As for, whether, if I was, would I ever snitch? The answer is I absolutely would not unless I stood to suffer any consequences with the law if I did it. Mm-hmm. But other than that, I definitely wouldn't snitch ever.
Unless they gave you like your favorite flavor ice cream.
Yeah. As soon as one cop would be like, "Hey kid, you thirsty? Want a soda?" I'd be like, "Yes, I do."
It's not like the movies at all. It's a super nice interrogation. They bring in like pizza and ice cream.
Yeah. So according to Velásquez, he loved his wife, but he killed her after she was exposed as an informant. Escobar entrusted Velásquez with getting rid of said informant. In an interview, according to Popeye, Escobar was clear in his instructions. You do her, you do not hesitate a single second. And it doesn't seem like he felt that bad about it.
No, he doesn't talk about it at all.
Because spoiler alert, in Sopranos, someone has to sell out their significant other. Maybe I just ruined it for you.
Dude, don't
Whatever,
worry about
it's been, but it's like this big deal, when that happens.
Yeah.
And this doesn't seem like that.
It's not Camilla, is it? It's not Camilla.
No.
Okay.
No.
Tony was getting sold out by Camilla. I would be very upset.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened. I'm still watching.
You're a Sopranos newbie. Oh,
yeah.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Somehow.
Do you listen to Chapo?
I was gonna say I've listened to 2 episodes before, so
yeah. I didn't think I cared about politics until I started listening to the show. It just all seemed very like for nerds. But you don't realize there's such a cool group of people on the left out there that you don't hear from that much. You know? So
glad to be doing it.
So now I changed. I'm a big commie, and I don't worship murderers anymore.
Unless they're Joseph Stalin.
Yeah.
And then he's good.
But that was necessary,
all the people
right?
he killed had it coming.
Yeah.
Same with Mao.
Are you ever confronted with that? Because it does seem like there's a lot of people online who are just like, communism killed 100 million people.
Oh, right.
And that's just a thing they say.
Sure. I mean,
But
and then there's
they're
also
all bad people, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. They deserve it. Well, I mean, that's true, but but what these people it's just capitalism has never killed anyone, obviously.
Yeah.
It's just do we really want to weigh out the bodies on there? Let's look at the number of people British imperialism killed in the 19th century. It's easily on par with what the Nazis did. Mm-hmm. Are we going to weigh out how many people were killed in the mid-Atlantic slave trade?
Right.
Those were all features of capitalism as far as I'm concerned.
Right.
And they've killed easily that number as communism did. So, yeah, all governments are pretty much evil. The 20th century is just basically an unbroken chain of atrocity. Mm-hmm. Nobody is completely innocent of all of that in any political ideology. But I
noticed you're a socialist, but you got an iPhone. I think.
But on the flip side of that is I have just as little respect for people who cosplay as Stalin is great and cool and never did anything wrong, or or legitimately believe everyone they murdered had it coming.
Right.
I think that's stupid and infantile as well.
Right. Yeah. Thanks. Well, anything else?
Yeah, do you think these hitmen had their dads teach
Yeah,
them how to do that Colombian necktie?
They have to stand up in front of a mirror, sort of reach
Matt
over
made that
them.
joke.
Yeah.
We were off the air. Yeah.
Hey, yeah.
My father not here to teach me Colombian necktie.
By the way, one last thing about Popeye, like when he
Yeah.
poses for like photos with people, he like puts their arm around. He always just shows up his tats,
Yeah.
and he has on
Yeah.
both arms the general of the mafia.
What a piece of shit.
Oh, that's on his. That's written on
it's
his.
both
yeah.
on his yeah.
Which I feel like if you have to say it,
Yeah,
You're-
and then there's another scene where I'm sorry, there's one more thing. Like he's getting
Yeah.
tattoos in one scene. He's getting a whole bunch of skulls on
Yes.
one arm, and he's like, "These signify death."
Oh yeah, that was great. If they're doing a documentary about you and you start telling them like for more than a minute what your tattoos mean, that's probably a bad sign.
Yeah.
It's like I want a burning candle right here in the
Yeah.
center. It's like what?
Seriously though, check out The Act of Killing though.
Yeah,
it's
okay.
very much like this. It's like even more surreal and like nauseating.
Nice.
Like it's like everything in this movie, but like way more intense. Like it's a really worth seeing. It's hilarious, but like really disturbing.
Yeah, I saw that Vice doc where they got in the back seat and they talked to an assassin. That was pretty cool. But I'm gonna check out.
What was that? Which one was that?
It was they talked to an assassin in a different country, and they just rode around in the back of the cab or I guess it was just a regular car, and they interviewed him from the back. And like just to ask him questions and to get in his mindset. It was a lot of the same things that this guy says. So he's not like a particular assassin or anything, but.
And to our listeners, if you meet a charming old man who's killed a lot of people, remember, he's bad.
Despite what other guests might say or might not say.
Now, what about this? There's a rumor that maybe like he wasn't even as high up as he says he is, because Wikipedia said that he was like a mid-level hitman.
Yeah,
He wasn't even at the top of
I
the...
don't fuck Wikipedia. I only trust
Okay.
YouTube. I only trust Popeye's YouTube channel.
Yeah.
YouTubers are the truth.
Yeah.
Everything else is fake news.
Yeah. Yeah, that guy at the end, he's like, I think this guy might be embellishing it and monetizing his time in the Medellin Cartel. I guess do you say Medellin? Can we straighten that up?
I think they said Medellin is how they pronounce it.
Yeah, I think that's more correct pronunciation.
Yeah.
Wait, we're on Popeye's YouTube channel right now. It says, we find a dead body in the Japanese suicide forest.
He's Arab for some reason.
Epic airplane prank.
He's wearing like a fuzzy hat. I'm sorry for showing dead Japanese body.
He's so
He has
Arab.
to, he has to apologize on the Today Show. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. I
Logan
don't know.
Paul
I can't
apologized on the Today Show for that.
No, I think on his
okay,
YouTube
yeah.
channel he did.
My favorite part of that entire thing was like it says Logan Paul apology video, and then like the thumbnail for the video is like gonna be like it's so good.
I saw like when everyone got really mad at Logan Paul about that. Like I saw one comment that I thought was really funny. There was like fuck these white people, they just go to Japan thinking it's going to be a spooky adventure. And I'm like, well, visiting the actual suicide forest is kind of a spooky adventure.
Why else you go to a suicide forest?
Like that's a thing. Like
Yeah.
I mean, if that isn't fucking haunted, I don't know what is. Like that.
Those Japanese toilets are definitely haunted.
I just imagine there's like a YouTube convention somewhere, and it's like Logan Paul, Popeye, and like some 10-year-old, like some 10-year-old kid.
Paul Joseph Watson.
Yeah, just all YouTube's best and brightest.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, well, thanks for listening, guys. Please check out if you don't know about Chapo Trap House. Yeah, check out the podcast. You want to plug anything?
Oh, if you're going to be in the city on January 19th, come to the Bell House to see my co-hosts Matt and Virgil debate each other over whether video games are a harmless pastime or poison to all of our minds.
Oh, nice.
Whoa.
All right. Thanks, everybody.